Welcome to the LinkedIn Live for the AI talk show, where we talk about how AI is transforming our world. We bring thought leaders, we bring leaders in the industry, and talk about real use cases. So excited that all of you are joining us, having this conversation. Please feel free to keep the questions coming, and we'll try to answer these questions as we are having this discussion. So, first of all, as we talk about this important topic of executive playbook for the AI first organization, it's really important to understand that we all are talking about AI, but are we really truly using this AI strategically as a strategic weapon in our organization to make sure that we are actually executing and being effective as we use this technology? I am so excited to have Jeff Garwood, SVP of the AI Factor Institute, and also a senior leader in the industry, to have this conversation with. Jeff, I'm so excited that you're here, and we're going to have this super interesting conversation about what does it mean to be AI first organization. So welcome to the show.
Given it's a great time to be having this talk. So
wonderful. So as we talk about AI, everybody's talking about AI, but what people are talking also about is that, is AI truly giving the value? In fact, I was on the panel at a conference a couple of weeks back where they were talking about what media is talking about, what is being published, what is being researched, and what everybody was talking about and concerned about is that AI is having this hype where organizations are investing, but they don't see the actual value. In fact, McKinsey said only 1% of organizations are seeing the true value out of all the implementation in AI. But yet we talk about AI first organization who are actually leading with AI. Before we jump into this topic, I want to talk about your background and your career and your wealth of knowledge from starting with technology companies, healthcare companies, public sector. So tell us a little bit about your background before we jump into the topic, and how
sure.
have you seen the evolution of technologies, and where do you see we are today?
Sounds good. Sounds good. So yes, so Jeff Garwood again, SVP at AI Factor. So basically, I've had a pretty long run going back through Salesforce, where I basically led the platform teams with technology architecture, particularly healthcare financial services. Before that was Oracle, doing a lot of data and foundational data center technologies, and healthcare, where we really transformed one of the Blue Crosses into more of a modern strategy. A lot of those lessons we had from there kind of are the same now in some ways. Is that when a new technology comes, there's a lot of confusion and uncertainty on how to embrace it. But the fact is, you need to embrace it. So I think the underlying theme of this whole talk today is going to be, starting to embrace it. We'll talk about some practical things on how to do that and why you really want to start that now. A couple other quick points, and then I'll move on. Is the importance of data has always been there. It's probably more so now than ever. So that's been a really strong trend as well.
You know, I've been in the industry for now over 3 decades, which I'm very proud of, because I feel like I've seen the evolution from mainframe. I started my career in mainframe and moved from mainframe to client server technology, and then the whole big boom of internet to big data. And I still remember working on big data platform, trying to analyze and build dashboards and trying to focus on bringing the value. So the whole value conversation has not changed. When we think about investing in technology, we're always investing in technology, but the big factor is, are we getting the value from these technologies? Of course, business users are saying that, yes, I'm happy to, fund you or provide resources to you, but can this technology truly give me the value that I need, but also quantifiable value? I was talking to another large technology, one of the tech leader, and he was saying that, listen, we're going to have incremental benefit, but it's not quantifiable. And my biggest challenge, and I know that you do this work in the Institute, is that really focusing on value from the very beginning, making sure that when you're implementing AI project, do you start by having end in mind, but also quantifying that end in mind, making your business user partners in your success as you build your strategy, to make sure that they are quantifying with you. They are providing, the business stakeholders are providing you the quantifiable benefit if the technologies delivered, and then how these agents, the AI agent, the world of agents, or the AI initiatives can actually give you value. Now, if you start with the quantifiable number, you can end with that quantifiable number. But also, I want to talk a little bit about the framework, the executive playbook these
Mm.
organizations can use. And I know that you run these workshops where you're actually using a framework. So, can you talk about where do we really start and where do we really end to make sure that we have something that we're speaking the common language with the business?
And
What
it's
framework that they can use?
sure, sure. Glad to tackle that. Let me kind of go off a point you just made though. As much as that traditional value mapping has always been true, it is a bit of a different time. So we're going to talk about the framework too. But when you look at where we're at today, it's really hard sometimes because this technique is so unknown and it's moving so fast. It is hard to gauge the value, right, of what they're doing. So but the ROI and the measures at the end are still just as true now as they are today. But I think organizations need to have a little more flexibility and latitude in how they're experimenting, how they're supporting, and how they're growing these initiatives. It's much harder to put a hard wrapper on that, but it's really important to have the executive buy-in and the values that are driving at the far end. So to get to your question, the important thing is really to start again from what are you trying to solve, right? What are the business goals and alignment you're trying to achieve? Getting very specific. So we use the word strategy a lot, but strategy is really just knowing what value you're looking to drive as a company. How do we define what those value drivers are? What are those initiatives and use cases that would really align to that? What are the human change and process and all the rest that we would need to put in place to support that? But again, the executive buy-in and support from every level, from culture change to supporting the organization, maybe with even labs or things to grow or training, um, champion networks to help support that all the way through the end. So it's really not one
Mhm.
process. It's really a bunch of pieces that come together that really lay out from how do you go from what do you want to do as goals to outcomes and value and measures and really trying to drive and reinforce that value over time.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think you start with, really understanding your business, as we talk about starting your journey with your business assessment, understanding where you are today. Are you a optimizer where you're focusing only on cutting costs, building efficiency, which everybody starts from. Everybody's like kind of focusing on. I see that in our workshops that a lot of organizations are focusing on optimizer, really saying that let's cut costs and use this technology for creating more efficiencies. But there are also some organizations who are saying, you know what, we want to be an extender. We want to really focus on our
Mhm.
customers, figure out how can we get the market share. And then the third quadrant we see is the innovators. They're saying we want to launch new drugs and we want to launch new products. And how do we really focus on, bringing our organization and thinking about being an innovator. Or very few companies are really focusing on being a multiplier, where we
Yeah.
talk about, can you break the old business model and really go into the world of building new business model, because that legacy models will not work anymore. So I will always say start with your business assessment for understanding where your current value is and then focusing on your future value. uh, have you seen the similar kind of feedback from the clients?
Oh, most definitely. And it's been really interesting too, is this that with even within a company, they might have multiple versions of that, right? So some parts, like a lot of, even very conservative companies, they can get a lot of value from just optimizing things. Like everybody has those opportunities to do that and learn and get their policies in place, get some learnings on how to measure and how to value that, and even getting their staff trained up, while they're also going after more strategic goals and trying to change the business, right? So most definitely knowing how you want to drive that and what are those again. So strategy is kind of like what's that value you want to provide to your customer, right?
Right.
How do we find that and reinforce that? And how can AI start to change that value prop that we're really driving out to our end customers, right? Um,
I was just going to say you build a amazing portal, which is actually anybody who's listening and they want to do this business assessment. It is provided a free assessment link, and we'll share it on the chat for you, all of you, so you have it. You can actually do a free assessment for your organization, your functional area. It's on our website, and you'll be able to go there and actually do an assessment and see where you stand. Before starting your journey, you want to know, where do you want to use your AI expertise for either being an optimizer or innovator or extender or a multiplier. So that's the first step of the journey. Very important thing, I think is really critical, Jeff, is that we need to talk about data. Data is a
Mm.
core platform for AI, and if you're not data ready, then your models won't provide you the right
Hmm.
output. And so it's really critical. And we talk about the AI governance and having the regulation and ethics becomes really critical. When we talk about data readiness, and listen, when in WILDA, the world leaders in data and AI organization, we have senior leaders in our organization, and a lot of leaders understand the value of data. It becomes really critical that when we are talking to the business user, we talk about why data is such a critical element. And in our framework, we talk about the four pillars of data readiness. The first is having a clear objective, of course. What is the impact of this initiative? The second is the data management, governance, security, ethics. Third comes is the now you can actually create transform before transformation. You create literacy, education, and then you create the transformation. I want to kind of focus a little bit more on the data security, ethics, and regulation and governance,
Hmm.
compliance piece. You led large financial services practice in Salesforce. And in financial services, compliance is like number one, compliance
Yep.
regulation. They're always playing defense. Talk to the audience about a little bit about data governance and especially the new security with this new tool, which becomes really, really critical.
Yeah. And I think the answer is there's not one answer. So really now with AI, it's going to take a very multi-layer approach. Traditionally we had data. It was very, clear. It's either yes or no, this is the data value. It's got this lineage. It's got this, quality level. That's all still true. Um, Now with the vast expanding amount of data that becomes available to AI, we have to look at that a little more broadly, right? Because now we're taking all the non-structured data, all your corporate data, creating these databases of knowledge and information that are way beyond just capturing data points. How do we layer that data and say, here's the government parts of the organization we have to govern really tightly, and the data we're going to tighten, but there's a vast amount of knowledge and information out there that can inform and drive that data. I'll give you a good example. Like um, one was a client. I'll give you the kind of they were kind of saying that we're never going to use AI, right? I'm like, of course you will, right? And it was a wealth management team, and they were saying we're never going to use it. We're so governed. But the point was when we really talked it through is that you have all these life change event data out there. They're a little fuzzier. They're not as locked down, and you have access to all this data that, did they get married? Did they buy a house? That can inform that and then drive your highly tightly governed processes that again are driven by data,
Yeah,
right? So it's really looking at it from a business process and where you can have allowances for that because now we can get more value from that, right? But we have to be aware of saying that, yes, it's got more uncertainty at certain layers of that data. So it's really working through that process to figure out like how does our data align with the value we're trying to drive? Again, what's our goal? And the risks and governance policies that we have to have in place, right? So, and a lot of that's still very much evolving.
you know, uh, we talk about security and governance and compliance, but I think really important to understand that we lived in the world as technology leaders where we were trying to focus on getting businesses to adopt technology. Now we are in the age where, I always say that engineers were not as popular in social setting before, but now when you go into a social setting, people are kind of knocking on your back and saying, tell me more about AI, because everybody's curious about AI now. You are in a big corporation, guess what? You have a pipeline of requests on what AI projects you should be doing. It's now where do you invest your resources now? And that becomes the question, is like, which project becomes the right project? And I
Mhm.
think that's what, Jeff, I've seen you do the work of prioritizing the use cases.
Yeah.
How do you make sure where you're getting the value, and how do you prioritize the use cases to make sure you're getting the right value? Do you want to maybe share some of your experience in that?
Sure, sure. So I'll kind of echo your quadrant thing earlier, where we're talking about the different quadrants you might fall on, multiplier, optimizer, that. But even within there, you're trying to figure out for your quadrant, which is, I might be an optimizer just by nature of my business. I'm a cost driven, I need to be the lowest cost, most efficient. Squeezing out pennies on a transaction is really important. But even within that, you can have things from just, quick wins all the way up to strategic initiatives, right? So, how do you start to figure out how to place bets? It's almost like thinking about those as you're going to place a number of bets across the board that's going to have particular outcomes. Some are pretty known. Some you want to, because these tools are evolving so fast, you may want to do some initiatives that are a little more at the edge, figure out what those boundaries are, figure out how it's going to fit your governance model. I think that's the theme that I said in the beginning is like, you got to get started with this stuff because it's moving so fast. The only way to really understand it is to get in and start to leverage it and figure out how does it align with your policy? How can you integrate that? How are you going to do to change manage across the team? But having a process where you're saying in a structured way, here's the bets I'm going to do. Here's the value we're looking to drive out of those. Here's how our executives are going to support those, and we can talk a lot more about the POC side, like how do we support the POCs particularly, because that seems to be a theme across most organizations, right?
I'm just going to shift from the POCs to really going back a little bit higher, the AI
Sure.
first organization. I was on a panel yesterday, and one question that came from the audience was a very interesting question, and I want to kind of share that question with you and get your feedback.
Sure.
They asked me about what happens to AI first organization, what happens to the human delegation. I mean, there is a lot
Mhm.
of backlash when you say, "Oh, we are the AI first organization," and then are the humans left behind? uh, what I've seen is that what my thought was, and my feedback to them was that it's really, when you're thinking about AI, it's not just AI first doesn't mean that you leave the humans behind. AI first means that there are three levels of decision layering. One is the routine task. That AI agents can be led, like contract reviews. I mean, JP Morgan Chase
Mhm.
example of coin contracts, 12,000 contracts a year took 360,000 hours, were reduced just because of using a AI agent to review the contracts and optimize it.
Mhm.
The second thing which I think about is, when I'm thinking about these concepts, is first is operational routine tasks. The second is a tactical situational. You say, what can human AI collaborate in, if it's marketing campaign planning, or any kind of situational task. But really, when you think about strategic task, has to be human led with AI augmentation.
Mhm.
So you can have AI as your companion, as your assistant, but has to be strategic initiative, has to be led by humans. So I don't think when we say AI first, it necessarily is eliminating the human delegation. What is your thoughts on AI first organization that everybody's been talking about?
Yeah.
How do you see the role of human delegation?
Oof, that's a big one. So I think, and I think it's, you look at industries from large to small, right? So there's companies that are AI first by nature, like Lemonade Insurance and things like that. They're starting out AI first. So they're really trying to build their systems where they're trying to use AI to the most maximum they can, drive their value, drive efficiency, but then they pass it off to people when that becomes important, right? I think for the bigger companies, it's where in this whole process of redefining their business are they going to trust the AI, and where are they going to really use it as a enabler for those people that really need that do that next level of work, right? So you hinted at that. So the things I've seen where it's been the most effective is where companies are rethinking their processes, right? Not just trying to overlay AI into what was otherwise human tasks. Like, let's rethink it. Let's figure out where in the human chain of things really matter, right? When things get complex, when it's out of bounds, trying to instead of pushing them down a chatbot route that going to be the same for everybody. How do we know when to pass that to a human and really let them take advantage? Um, and then the last one you talked about was really about the strategic enabler. It's when you look at AI, the what it can do to help you think of things you hadn't have otherwise thought of as a
Mm.
strategic, for just giving you guidance and ideas and ideation on how to run your business, expand your market, manage your people, right? All those things. It's really an uplift from that side. So I think it's really weaving it through in a different way.
Uh, I think there are so many things as you think about will play a role in the AI first organization. I think it's about the mindset. I truly believe organizations that will lead in the next decades, they're not only going to adopt AI, but they're going to rethink how they operate. I think these models of AI first organization is not going to leave the humans behind. I think it's the humans who know how to use AI more effectively, asking a more interesting question and being more curious. Leading strategically, I always say that now humans are upgraded because there's no human who's not managing AI, digital humans. Everybody's going to have a digital human they will be managing. I think, Jeff, as we come to the close, I am so excited about the future because we are entering an era where we are making decisions, we're driving value with AI, and it's not limited to the front line. It's going into the boardroom where leaders are deciding about it. I truly believe that we are entering the era where we have to rethink how we build our organization. What does AI bring to our table? How executive thinks, how the mind shifts are going to change, and what kind of mind shift change is required. We have to rethink about the capabilities we are building. I am excited about the future, and I'm so glad, Jeff, you took time out to meet with us during this LinkedIn Live. Thank you so very much, and we'll see everybody again on next session, bringing in new content. Thank you, everybody who joined today for the LinkedIn Live. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. And again, remember, you can reach out to Jeff on his LinkedIn if you have any questions which we didn't answer today. Jeff, you'll be okay if they reach out to you and ask you questions.
Mhm, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.